Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. After a very long and busy day, I finally made it in time to start the stream here. AJ, thank you so much for your good evening. And what you see here is the Class 20 locomotive of the subclass. Class 20 stroke 3 that we get from the rather new Cargo Line 5 Nuclear DLC, or as Homer Simpson insists, Nuclear DLC, that we are unboxing. City Radar, no way, it is Sunday again, it is so fast, right? And I am more or less on my feet since 10 minutes before 7 this morning with the horses, with other stuff. And now I made it to present you with this latest Cargo Line DLC that had been released during the week, and it gave me the opportunity to look a bit into the British nuclear industry, especially as it is connected with transporting nuclear fuel to power plants, to processing units, and all the complex and difficult questions that are connected with that. The Cargo Line 5 Nuclear DLC gives us this really blue locomotive, Class 20 stroke 2, what is a modernized version of the old Class 20 that is already in the game here, the Rail Freight 20 stroke 1 locomotive. I've spawned it here so that we can actually compare the two. See the radar. Oh, Germans love nuclear power. Yeah. Well, we all love the power, but nobody loves the risk, the costs, and the pollution that is connected with nuclear power. So let's check out this locomotive. We have a locomotive that has two cabs, or two driving units. What do they call it? Driving desks. One for driving the locomotive in that direction, where they actually installed a new camera angle so that you can properly look alongside your locomotive. The Class 20 is obviously a locomotive that is still built when engineers and designers had still steam locomotive in their head, because obviously you have a cab like a footplate on a steam locomotive, and in front of them the diesel engine compartment, as there was the boiler. And only after more designs they realized that driving the locomotive the other way around is actually easier and you can see better. So those locomotives typically come in pairs, twinned, so that you can use the cabs on the outside of this pair to drive the locomotive. Spectre, hey nuclear friends, and Theodoros, hello Tiger and all. AJ, hey guys. Yeah, the steam. And Akura is here, moin, nearly late. Well, no problem, I am really taking it easy today, because I am genuinely knackered. Nevertheless, so this is the locomotive that comes more or less new, not really new, but a new subclass with this DLC. What is new is this kind of freight car that transports those nuclear flasks, where you can transport, well, radioactive nuclear fuel, new fuel, or spent ones in those flasks. And those flasks have been proven to be extremely safe when it comes to be deformed in an accident. They threw it from a tower, they crashed a locomotive against them, and they were rather crash worthy, those flasks. Hey Juniper, nice to see you on the chat. Yeah, I tried to open the Flask, but this does not work. You can even check the padlock if it is still properly locked, so that no one nicks some radioactive fuel, or that nobody gets it into their sleeve collar, as Homer Simpson usually has to come along with. What's nice and what's new in those seats is that you can actually rotate them. So driver 1, second man 2, or the other way around. Haven't seen that before. Handbrake wheel, a wheel for emergencies. You can climb on the fire extinguisher, as it seems. Quite a lot of different devices to turn on if you want to switch on the safety systems, isolation switch, cap changeover, what is cap activation more or less, then the DSD is here, and then typically for whatever reason the temporary TPWS isolate is isolated here. Here you can switch what driving desk you are using. The instrument lights can be better seen at night. They have a nice bluish sheen. The GSMR probably works, but we have to turn on the master switch first. Here the key is simulated lying about on the desk. Yeah, that is it. For comparison, I put the old Class 20 there. We already have a green signal. You can see the head code discs still in place on the old version. Also 2 desks. Can also rotate the seats here. That is an old thing, but this is the old version as they came into existence. No, I don't want to have the service, I just wanted to sit down a bit. Yeah. What the new version does not have, unfortunately, is the hot plate that can actually change color, and you can burn your fingers. They did not want to have this with the nuclear trains, obviously. Yep. It's actually funny that they use those super old locomotives to transport the nuclear fuel. But those locomotives were actually the first locomotives to transport them after the direct rail services were created. Let's move them a bit, maybe. We need some lights. Here is the light selector. And the brakes can be released easily by overcharging them. What did Spectre say? Oh, there is T is mandatory, British law. Probably yes, but no nuclear T here. And Spectre says, Tiger, I have a question about the Class 20. If you drive them in pairs, do they work as a multiple unit? Does the second loco take power as well via cable? It is not like this when they are apart. It does not work like on the US locos with banking comms. Yes, I think they work as pairs, working as multiple units, but they need to be connected with a wire. And the banking com simulates a second driver in the game, and this is not simulated for those locomotives here, I think. Because there's no tea is of course unacceptable, to be honest. Yeah, we have to use cold tea here on those locomotives. By the way, where did my... Maybe I restart the service so that we don't have some weird artifacts from my free roam experiments with the old version. So let's just start the service again and see how it drives the Class 20. So we have to wait for a moment that allows us to activate the safety systems properly. And then we have to get up because the key is always on the other end. So we are charged. Now our GSMR actually works. No old Class 20. We're at Milton Keynes. Those Class 20-3 locomotives run on the West Coast Main Line core route for trains in World 5. Oh. Wouldn't hurt to put the reverse actually into forward. Then we're pulling some amps and we're rolling. So those locomotives are really blue, but they don't have the direct rail services logo on them. They're always limited to 60 with these locomotives. What we see from our head code already. Some of the services start at the sidings along the road here, Bletchley for example. So you see a bit more of the London Euston, Milton Keynes part of the West Coast Main Line. Maybe I turn up the volume a bit. Yes. And this is actually the way that those nuclear fuel containers, the flasks, have been moved about Great Britain. At least since the 90s. As old as the Class 20 actually is, originally. This particular subclass is more or less from the 90s, when the direct rail services area was created. one of the older locomotives, but you can see that the key bindings for AWS and the DSD and vigilance are not separated and cannot be separated. So it is always one key for DSD and AWS acknowledge. What is nice is the smoke from the diesel engine, at the moment rather thin, since we're more or less coasting. And CD Radar says, I wouldn't consider smoke as nice. Yeah, you're right. As long as I can only enjoy it as an animation, it is much nicer than the real smoke in real life. So we have to take it easy. We're running up to a red signal. But it probably already changed. What is nice in the services, yep, it's already changed to a flashing yellow. Lady, please stay on your platform. Announcing that we have to switch lines. And run into a speed restriction. Here you can see the moped board for it. 60 on the diverging line, what is obviously not so problematic for us as we are limited to 60 anyway. So from the services that I played that come with this DLC is, well, they are quite lengthy freight services where you run your way with mostly constant speed. So you have to like this if you want to enjoy the services that come with this DLC. And apart from that, it is nice to see that the services switch lines here on the West Coast main line, London Euston, Milton Keynes. At the moment we are on the slow line, and now we are going for a bit on the fast line. Because there is probably some unused capacity. So instead of just running the line for like 1 hour or 1.5 hours, you get some switching lines at any rate, and the signals that come with it. See, Pendolino, we are on the fast line too. And Theodorus asks me, how do they transport nukes these days? I think not so much different. Those flasks are still in use, I think. And there are still some active Class 20-3 locomotives within the DRS. We will have a presentation later about what this direct rail services company actually is. The thing is that they don't do reprocessing anymore with nuclear fuel at Sellafield. So the big question is actually, what nuclear transports are there still to happen? It's mostly decommissioning. Inspector says, I think running a signal with this train will give extra hot tea and spicy biscuits with the manager. Yeah, that is definitely so. Well, so this is one way to transport nuclear fuel to the power stations, from the power stations to the reprocessing plant, to whatever facility to store them, to decommission them. Sometimes you have trains that have a car for the crew in the consist, another locomotive on the other side, sandwiched, so that you have some redundancy in your traction power. Yeah, what I meant to say, I actually enjoyed driving those long, rather unspectacular services on the Class 20. It's a smooth running. There seems to be a problem with the audio of the cars here, because you can't really hear a lot of running noise from the freight cars. You obviously hear the noise from the Class 20s. On the other hand, this gives you a really relaxed drive. CD Radar says earlier this year we had an accident with a freight train carrying benzene, and the whole thing burned down and the site was contaminated for many months. Yeah, those are